Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Ser Ezra, the Watchful. And friends, we are back with episode 2. And we're also back with our good friend, Sir Jimmy from the Fantasy Network. How's it going, my friend?
I just finished the second episode of House of the Dragon, so I'm doing pretty good. I need I don't know. I need a minute. I didn't get to watch the post-credit stuff. I watched you guys watch it.
Yeah.
So I missed it. So apparently there's a time jump next week. Is that what it looks like?
Yeah, so the preview for next week, which I don't actually want to go too in detail, just in case some people who are listening to the podcast don't necessarily want it spoiled because they want to watch it fresh. But yeah, it does look like we are gonna start getting some of the bigger time jumps. And I think it's pretty safe to say, just in what you saw by the end of this episode, War of the Stepstones next week is at least beginning, because there were some sick shots in there, and we are going to have to figure out how we cover that, because I am getting married next week, and Jimmy Nez will be here in Portland for that episode, so we're going to figure that out. We still have to figure out exactly how we're gonna cover that episode. It might just be the next day we record something in the morning, and then it goes up same day. But nonetheless, we are here to talk about episode 2, the Rogue Prince. So, guys, episode 1, it's kind of hard to compare episode 2 to episode 1, because episode 1 wasn't just a great episode. It was sort of a showcase of, this is what Game of Thrones is. This is what this show is going to be. Game of Thrones is back. This felt more like a episode 2 or 3 of a season 1 through 4 to 5 of Game of Thrones. But we need it. You've got to start fleshing out these characters a little bit more, doing some building some suspense, giving us plot points that are going to pay off later. So that's what this was, because I saw some people saying, oh, there wasn't as much action. Well, if you really go back and watch Game of Thrones, not every episode was like loaded with,
the entire first season.
Action. No. Yeah.
In fact, the one big action point in the first book is cut from the show because they didn't have the budget. So Tyrion just gets knocked out before the battle even starts. So
yeah, exactly. But no, I thought the episode was good. I'm at like a solid 8. I felt like, for me, solid 8 out of 10, just because episode 1 was a 10 out of 10, and then to try to compare it to episodes of Game of Thrones, boom, solid. This is like an 8. This is like an 8 out of 10, which is, on Game of Thrones standards, is a very good episode. Man, some good moments for me really quick before I pass it on. I think the moments that stuck out to me the most was Rhaenys and Rhaenyra talking, and Rhaenys offering that like sound advice of like, hey, just so you know, they don't want a woman on the throne, no matter what you kind of think is the case. Just be ready. It actually kind of reminds me a little bit of, you go back to Game of Thrones and like Cersei offering advice even to Sansa early on, like, just so you know, this is the way things work, regardless of what you believe in your stories and your songs. This is the way it actually works.
Yeah. Jimmy, what did you think, man? I mean, big takeaways.
I actually thought this episode was better than the first one. So the first one has more of the glitz and the glamour that we came to love in like the later seasons and showing off of the budget. But I thought this was way more of the feel of like earlier Game of Thrones. I really, really enjoyed female agency was explored here as a theme in the second episode, because Massaria, totally different than the books, by the way. But we see her getting a lot more agency in the story, her wanting to be with Daemon for protection, not to fear. We see Rhaenyra take the reins figuratively and literally and kind of step into her own and start showing that she is a player in the Game of Thrones. And then on top of that, obviously Rhaenys is there, and then Alicent doing her thing. Like it's interesting because there's like, you can see now that Rhaenyra is kind of being warned not to play this game, and she's going for it. And then a lot of the other women in the episode were being used for other people's, advantages, or in a position where they didn't have power. So I just thought like a lot of the stuff that came from the female perspectives was really, really good in this episode. And I think it's starting to kind of get into the main theme of the Dance of Dragons, or the dance rather. Mm-hmm. But I think the coolest thing was the crab stuff. I mean, the crab stuff, I was wondering how they pull it off. It's like straight out of like a horror movie. I thought it was awesome. So like from an actual visual standpoint, that the dragon landing on the bridge behind.
Oh yeah.
That was amazing. It was phenomenal. So I was just really impressed with the episode overall for, having very little action. I thought the intensity was there. And this is the stuff that I really enjoyed from the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. But I we can talk more. I won't take up any more time. But I do think that there's some significant differences between this and Game of Thrones. And now we're starting to hit that. Yeah, there are two different shows completely. And I don't mean canon and all this shit. I just mean like literally how it's done is going to be totally different. But yeah, I thought this was actually better than the first episode.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of echo what you guys are saying, I thought it was awesome. That was great. The several of our chats blown up, by the way. Shout out to all of them there. But the intensity, everyone's saying like the intensity was still there, and the intensity was there in dialogue, like these lines, or the even just in the acting and in the looks, right? Mm-hmm. Just in Otto Hightower's look. Matt brought it up in the episode. This look, this sort of a checkmate to Corlys Velaryon, gaze, because early on as we're watching it, Matt was bringing up Tywin a little bit, and we're thinking like, okay, these guys who play the game, there's different ways to play it, right? Like kind of keeping everybody in the dark. What are you doing? And it's very, very subtle. It feels very natural. So anyways, I mean, I think Otto Hightower is, I don't know, again, they're showing that how powerful dragons are, and we understand what he's setting up here is access to dragons for House Hightower, essentially. You know what I mean? Like he's like, I can play that game too. Watch me use my daughter to do that very thing. I mean, it's twisted and crazy, but that is literally what's up. That's what's happening. So I felt like just the intensity in terms of these moments, or even Rhaenyra, going to her uncle, and just the various, like the dialogue was so good. It's so rich and it's so intense. And there's also they let, moments sort of, linger. They let the intensity, the atmosphere kind of get, I don't know, like it's electric. And you can feel it watching it. Because Matt, multiple times during our reaction, we're sitting there, we're just like, like we're reacting to just a line delivered by a character. And it's, I don't know, I think it's a great indicator of a pretty well-written episode. Yeah,
a lot of the power in this episode came from the non-spoken lines of like Alicent looking up at Rhaenyra at the end of the episode. The swords coming out on the bridge at Dragonstone.
Yeah.
So tense. I think Otto Hightower and Daemon's interactions are just peak this show right now. Like I really do believe that. Like I think that those are my two favorite people on screen at one time.
Yeah, and let me just for the sake of for the people who are saying, man, there's no action. So this graph actually shows number of words per minute for each episode of Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 8. And it goes down and down and down and down and down. Okay. Well, so if you think like peak Game of Thrones is really like season 4 and stuff like that, and then it just gets lower and lower and lower. And then that big bottom drop right there is actually the Long Night episode, because it's like an hour. It's like it's the whatever. It's like just an hour and a half battle scene, which was awesome. But as you can see, right, like the data shows that the more dialogue, really, in terms of how what was peak Game of Thrones, the better it was. So I was totally fine with it being a more dialogue heavy episode. That's how you build it, and that's what makes those action scenes that much better.
Well, Gurm's involvement too really helps. You can almost like feel it. He's looking over scripts. That's the thing he's been talking about a lot, is that he's looking over. He looked over multiple scripts, and I feel like, again, they do have the Fire and Blood to sort of pull from. We've actually heard direct quotes from that. Daemon last episode, and so on. So it feels really good, and I think you're right. Like we have to have this. It to me, most is I guess we're talking about the throne, the Iron Throne, and we're talking about an heir, and we're back to this political kind of maneuvering, and so that's done through politics or gestures or alliances or whatever, and so a lot of that comes in through dialogues, which is great. But then you have these epic moments like Jimmy said, when you have the dragon showing up, and just I don't know, things I didn't expect, like things that you're sort of like, what's Otto thinking showing up here? And then Rhaenyra does her thing. It's just it was subtle. It was enough. It had its moments. It was really good, and I'm really pleased. I think we all kind of expected an episode where it wasn't going to be super, like war heavy,
So that's coming. That's coming next episode.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of that.
Right. Right.
So let's go back just a little bit in the episode, because something I have been hammering about, that I wanted, and we got it, and I was so pleased. We actually saw the leak. I got it last night. I was like, guys, in our group chat, I was like, guys, the episode intro has leaked. And Jimmy was like, Matt, all caps, I'm super drunk, send it. And so sent it, and we were all just like, oh my God, it's back. What do you guys think about it, man? What do you think about the new intro? I love it. I absolutely freaking love it. I'm so glad, as I've talked about it, that I'm so glad that they used the same song, because if you're trying to build this like Star Wars type thing, which Gurm has said he wants to do, Star Wars, it all starts a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Boom, the song hits. And why would you change it? And that's where I'm at on this intro.
Yeah, and the visuals are updated and really, really cool. I've seen some people already breaking down what it actually is showing, but I can't remember it off the top of my head because I've read a million things this week about this show. But I was glad they stuck with the original intro. It's arguably the most monumental opening to a show ever. You're never going to top it.
Yeah.
So just use it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason not to. And so it was cool to see the same, animation and everything. And I think you're right, Jimmy. I was looking as we started. I told Matt, I was like, we're gonna have to go. I watched it, but I was watching my phone. I wasn't really like stopping and like looking or whatever. But as I watched it the second time, I was like, wow, there's all sorts of little I don't like sigils on like engraved into the wall.
It's a family tree.
It's
the Targaryen family tree.
Okay.
It's the family tree, and it's blood that's running down. If I looked at some things earlier, people who were breaking it down, and they were saying like the first thing you see is like the doom of Valyria, and then continues on, and you get like Aenys and Megor and stuff like that.
Dude, we got some Valyria, Doom of Valyria talk in the show too to this episode. I was very ecstatic to hear that.
Yeah, that's good when you can go back to like their roots, the lore, and even at the end, right? We got like Corlys and stuff talking about the dragon lords versus how his family sort of almost had more. I mean, there was almost more history, right, for that family. So great.
Yeah, everyone in the chat saying intro was amazing, and I agree with you, Jimmy. It's definitely, for me, I mean, I think, them choosing to use the same song, it's just so iconic. I mean, it is up there with like the most. I'm gonna look outside of this, but I mean, when you just talk about all of television, there's definitely intros to shows that are just sort of so iconic. Like say like The Simpsons, for example. I mean, like everyone's seen it. You know exactly what it is. It's like it's super iconic, and there's other ones as well. But I mean, it's in that same breath of some of like the best intros of all of television. Everyone knows what it is. So I think it has that same sort of feel to it. It actually, to me, feels a little bit closer to like season 8's, because all the other ones, and season 8 was the map as well. But season 8's intro, at least, was kind of cool and unique because like the wall had finally fell, and then it like went inside like King's Landing and like through the crypts and stuff. Yeah. So it definitely felt a little bit more like that.
Yeah, I agree. I was glad that they switched it up. And still made it feel its own, but like they already have a tall enough task to like kind of get people back on board from season 8, and then just be a great show. Like those are hard challenges, so like why not take the free W, take the best intro of all time for myself,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, perfection, right?
I mean, like, essentially, right?
It was good. It was good. So I guess, we want to kind of comb through because there's so many good scenes. There's so many good things that were done early on. As I'm kind of like scrubbing back through here. I mean, the light and the candle scene, the whole situation there. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous, right? This thing was, Matt, you said early on, like the lighting for this was I feel like the lighting, and cinematography in general, one of the things Game of Thrones did, and on one hand, it's a little bit of the product of the time. I don't mean like medieval. I mean like 2012. Yeah.
But there was this sort of thing going on you saw it a lot in video games, but which also resulted it being in movies and other stuff, where there was this sort of like, go back and look at a lot of movies and games and everything that came out around like 2012, 2013. And for whatever reason, everyone really loved this sort of like brown color palette for everything, and like gray and like a green, almost as if you put like a filter over it. And here everything feels much more vibrant, right? Like the colors seem to pop more.
Yeah, the palette's way better in House of the Dragon. I'd agree.
And I think in one hand, there's so much about that I actually love, because it's also like, this is the height of the Targaryen dynasty, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in Game of Thrones, like, they destroyed the Targaryen dynasties. Robert sort of let the realm run to shambles. War is breaking out. And I think that it kind of works for that too.
Yeah.
So I love both, but I do just love more of the vibrancy here.
You're right.
And some of that's technology now too. Yeah. Cameras and everything.
That's a good point though, Matt. It makes a lot of sense. It is this sort of peak moment for them, I guess, from Aegon's conquest on, and where they're really coming off the reign of the old king, and things are good. This is right before the dance where they're going to lose. Spoiler: a lot of stuff's going to go down. And you have a lot of dragons. They have a lot of dragons. They're in power, and so it's like a bright, vibrant feel, But like you said, it's also just an increase in technology. But it's so good. It's so well shot. And I think our friend Ryan is in here. Sir Ryan was also saying, like, the candle. We got candles all over the place. They're just using lighting really well, and it's also like you've got intense scenes going on, but you've also got well lit stuff. All the props look good. We were talking about the food and the goblets of wine, and it's on another level,
Oh yeah. And another big thing from the original show to this that I'm noticing is that we still have a ton of characters. We still have a major conflict. However, we're not jumping to Essos as much. We're not going to Flea Bottom with Tyrion. So a lot of it is happening right in court. And I do think that makes it feel like a little bit of a smaller scoped show. So you're really seeing like scene to scene to scene, whereas in Game of Thrones, there was a variety of that. And I think that's kind of a challenge in some ways, but that's why this is such a different show. That's why I said earlier, like, I feel like this is just a much different show. And it's just because of like it happening pretty much all at court. It's way more of a political drama.
Well, like you said, so Viserys, right? You would see a scene with him with one character, and then you bounce to another scene. Well, there's Viserys again, but with a different character. So we're not really moving like around a whole lot. And you're right. It's different. It's a different type of scope or scale. And I think it's going to, right? I mean, we know that it's going to expand or whatever, but you've got a real good drama going on with the small council and within the Targaryen family itself. So I feel like, and they've done a really a good job with that, with the intensity. They're like here at King's Landing, and then just off, down to Dragonstone, they've kept the intensity very intense. You've got different players on the small council doing their thing. Corlys Velaryon is bringing it. Like, everything he says is almost like this challenge, but also he has the family heritage. They've got the money, the power, the fleet. So you can really feel the weight of that character when he speaks to the king, or when he makes these proposals, or when he's affronted. It's, again, a very fascinating way to kind of keep it small, but at the same time, the stakes are very big. They're large. There's war, like in the Stepstones. There's, they make it feel like, I never felt like when I was reading Fire and Blood that Rhaenyra early on like that was in such peril, or that the king felt like she could be lost in that way. So that's right. That was cool. It was good to see.
In fact, I would say that's a difference. Fire and Blood makes it seem like their relationship is super healthy. It's kind of glanced over, said, hey, he loved her, he named the heir, and then it kind of went on. But now we're seeing, obviously we're getting a lot more of the details fleshed out. Let me ask you this, Ez, because I see people saying, I saw someone say in the chat, and I'm curious as well. This show is very serious, and I knew it was last episode, but I was curious of what like the second episode would do. There's not that comic relief that we saw in Game of Thrones. And I am actually okay with this. I don't actually think it calls for humor, especially to break some of these scenes that are so tense, because we got a lot to cover. Like this show's got to move. So I don't like forced humor. And Fire and Blood itself didn't have a ton of humor, unless if it was Mushroom, which Mushroom, from what we know, is supposed to be in the background at some point.
Right.
But,
Okay.
He's not going to be a main character. But do you feel? Are you feeling that lack of humor, and does it bother you, or do you think it's fine?
Until you brought it up right now, I hadn't really felt that, and I guess Tyrion is such an odd that brings all of that just in his character and the dynamic level at which he performs and everything. It's just Peter Dinklage is amazing. Yeah. So I think in the first episode, as crazy as this sounds, I mean, Daemon being with the gold cloaks provides that, like in a whorehouse, is sort of that. We're all kind of chuckling like, oh, there's Game of Thrones again. And that was just enough to get people like, okay, kind of, I don't know, move it, like grinning or whatever. And then, so, I mean, it was a roller coaster last episode in terms of like, thinking that was kind of funny to like real intense pregnancy scene, and then real intense like stuff with the gold cloaks and them going out and sort of asserting their dominance and stuff like that. So, I don't really feel like I'm sure it will come here and there, but I'm with you. Like when you force it and you feel like you need to put a character in like that, that
because then you get Bronn again, and Bronn was shoehorned in those last few seasons, and I felt it was awkward. So I actually don't believe we need any humor. And there is, and people are saying, hey, there was a little bit of humor. I know, but I'm saying, I mean, Game of Thrones, it was way more overt.
Right.
This is like kind of like, that grim humor, like where Daemon kind of laughs at Kristen Cole,
exactly.
There's a little bit there. So I think that's enough. I actually think that we should maintain the kind of attitude that the show has now throughout. I don't really need the Mushroom or anything else. I would love Mushroom to be in it, but you know what I mean?
Well, I think though too, like it just feels like, especially this time period in this piece and what's happening is that there's just the intensity will just build to the point where it's just, you guys know what's going to happen. It's going to be absolute, craziness. So they've already done a great job of capturing that tension. And I feel like this is ridiculous. I can't believe I'm the guy actually saying this right now, but sometimes that release of tension will come at certain points in different ways. I can't believe I was the guy who had to make that comment. But anyway, what I'm saying? So it's crazy that's probably what they're doing. And I'm with you. I hope there's not some character who comes in as just super funny or super, I don't know, just to kind of throw it at us or whatever. And I don't think there will be though, right? I don't feel that.
No, I don't feel that's going to happen at all. It'll be interesting. It'll be
some trash talk. I mean, some trash talk is good to kind of lighten the mood or whatever, which I like that from
it'll come.